Yes, I think I know that. That's a very old word.
Well, I can't give you I can't give you the state of the economy in terms of precise numbers to date. So we can only take the most recent figures published, which is the end of the 2019 report, and extrapolate based on what's happening in our country. And of course, that is not in isolation from the political economy, right? Our major sectors over the last 5 years have been declining with steadily, with the exception of the gold sector and the other export sector. And if I to factor in the impacts of COVID-19 and with the restrictions there too, and with the events in the political economy in terms of the questions raised by experts with regards to the status of the government and the status of elections, that have certainly impacted the economy and the livelihoods of people as well. And you have the international reports are closed, the ports are closed, transportation sector down, people are at home, some people are now working. So you have all the major sectors, including subsectors are affected. Like for example, the entertainment industry, the restaurant, the hospitality business, the hotel industry. Those sectors will be experiencing significant decline in business. I think the only sectors that are relatively sustainable or keeping alive is the food industry, because people still have to eat, people have to survive, and those people who are not working, thankfully you have people who are providing things like hampers and so on. So you will see supermarkets are doing well, and some you talk about the people still not staying home earlier, whether there is a meaning, whether the economy is really closed or not. So people are still commuting. So the transportation industry is still doing the, still is still surviving, and of course you have low fuel prices. So whatever reduction in commuters you have using the public transportation system, the operators still recoup that cost or offset that cost with low fuel prices. So in a nutshell,
Everything is up in our studio here. All the buttons are up. That's strange. Go ahead. Go ahead. So go ahead, yo. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks. We're working to fix that. Joel, you might have to speak up a little bit, unfortunately. But Joel, let's come back to you. So you were giving us a little synopsis of the various sectors in the Guyanese economy that would be suffering given what's happening. Please pick it up back.
So start over
No,
or
no, pick it up
continue?
from, yeah, continue.
No, yeah, I was saying with apart from major sectors, with the exception of the gold industry and oil and gas related sectors, you've had the other productive sectors have been declining, and that is when you look at where we come where we come at the end of 2019, and you're looking back at 5 years ago, how those numbers move in terms of fluctuating up and down. Uh, then I was talking about the impacts of COVID, the COVID-19 restrictions, and the impact of the political economy as well. That has to do with the status of the government, the legitimacy of the government, the outcome of elections, the status of elections. All of that have have a compounded impact on business, on the business environment, on the economy, and more importantly, on the livelihoods of the ordinary people like me and you, the working class people, householders, the employees, and so forth, right? It has impact to do with how are they sustaining a household. And I was saying earlier that with these restrictions, like for example, on our international airports have been closed, that has been extended for another month. Our ports also have been closed, or there are some restrictions there too, and that has an impact on the tourism industry. For example, with no traveling happening, with what we've seen earlier in 2019, we had heavy traffic, and all of that was driven by investments and related to the oil and gas industry. And that alone bring in over 10 million US, more than 10 million US in terms of tourism activities. When you look at the multiplier effect, the value chain, when we talk about the hotel industry, when we talk about the tourism industry, we're talking about the entertainment business, we're talking about accommodation, we're talking about food, restaurant, we're talking about the tourism industry, the tourist attraction sites, beaches, the resorts, and these sort of thing, right? So
So all
that
of this,
alone brings
right, all of this would have taken the severest hit because of COVID
correct,
19, Joel. But take
correct,
us
correct.
take us take us 2 months back. Let's go back to January this year. That's more than 2 months, but let's go back to January, February this year, and give us a little walkthrough. If you put your mind back to January 2020, what was the state of the economy then? Would we have been up and galloping along, or were we already in a downward slump?
Well, you see, our economy is a small economy, and all these sectors generally are interrelated.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see, for example, the Ministry of Finance reported there's growth consecutively, GDP growth 4%, 4.5%, 4.7%. What that growth is measuring, it's measuring activities in the economy in terms of spending, and
Yeah.
people spending money if you're earning money. So you have spending in government spending, you have spending in investments, and a large portion of the investments in the economy, if you read the reports, they're attributed to the oil and gas related sectors. And you have spending in terms of consumers spending, household spending in the economy as well. To the point up to January, we have not the economy was still doing relatively well, despite the other sectors might be experiencing their challenges and so on. But that would not have been felt across the network. Like for
And
example,
that would not have been felt
uh,
across the network, across the rest of this thing, because was it because there is the oil sector had started to pick up the slack?
correct. You have the oil sector and the value chain along the line. Like
Yes.
if the value chain along the oil sector, for example, what does that
Mhm.
mean? So a company that gets a contract or a subcontractor with Exxon, for example, they need logistics service. So they need logistics, they need insurance, and who supply those services? You have the other business support that supplies that. They need to employ people, and
Right.
if you have, well, we don't know how many companies. You got to check with a lawyer, whoever. But based on reports, you have hundreds of companies incorporating over this period. So all these companies, they need accounting services, they need
Right.
legal services. So all of this create employment. So this is how the value chain system works, and this is how the money is trickle down, even down to the streets on the pay of the guy who sells coconut on the street. Because when you create
Mhm.
more companies come in, more companies employ more people, so more people earn and more people they go to party, they go to the movies, they go on the street, and you have tourists come and they like to go on the streets and those sort of thing, and they spend money. So that's how. If I'm to give you another analogy, like for example, I've written extensively on the sugar industry and the impact of the sugar industry, and I've argued that closure of that industry would have extracted over $40 billion in circulation from the economy. You have over 40 over 9,000 people were unemployed. Then you have the multiply effect of that as well. But what
Right.
has happened? A lot of people quickly, like for example, my family was planning, who's heavily involved in sugar, in the sugar in sugarcane business, sugarcane farming. From the year before, they went into rice cultivation, right?
Mhm.
Then you have a lot of people, when the estates closed, they were already at that point of retirement. So while a lot of people were negatively impacted and went into a state of depression, you had a lot of people who are not really affected. And then also, because we're an open economy, and because of CARICOM and people go all over the place, you have a lot of people who went out of the country and were working and so on. So that's why the effects, people were still surviving. But that is
But
not
Joel,
to say people were not.
but but Joel, the man in the street would say that okay, if one like what COVID has done with us, COVID has look, the man in the street feels that everything was pushed aside for oil. Literally, the entire productive sector was just shunted aside for oil. And the man in the street feels that, if something were to happen to oil, then we have a serious problem. It so happened that COVID has happened. And so, so can you answer to that argument?
Correct. If we were to take out oil from the equation completely, right, from 2050, because pre-2050 we didn't have oil, we didn't have oil extraction. So if we were to take that out of the equation completely, we would have been having a different conversation. You would have had a lot of people suffering, right? Compounded by other structural issues in terms of these industries that we just talked about. People went into unemployment. Then the effects would have been far greater on the negative side. And then I see, if I'm to divert a little bit there are two things that there were two major sectors, and the multiply effect of the order value chain of those sectors that have been keeping us alive, that has been keeping the economy more or less sustainable or on 2 feet.
Right.
And that is the oil and gas related sector. Not just when we speak of oil and gas, it is important. I want the viewers to understand we're not talking about Exxon and
Mm.
Exxon. Everything is driven from that, but the oil and gas related sector covers the sector that support the activities out there, and they need all sorts of support. They need logistics. They need, if you have to import somebody to work on a drill, you need a near travel agency. They need accommodation. They need insurance coverage. They need all those sort of thing, which is um, other businesses, in other sectors. Um, so if we take all of that completely out, and if we take gold out of the picture, gold has been always accounting for the highest foreign exchange earner. If we take that out of the equation, then we would have been in a state no different from our neighbor Venezuela.
I want to ask you directly, Mr. Bhagwandin. Where would you say the biggest winners of the economy, or who are the biggest winners at the moment in terms of businesses?
Who are the biggest winners?
Somebody is
That's
benefiting,
a
somebody is making money at the moment. Who are those people?
well, that's a tricky question. It's a tricky political question. I can't quantify that. But if we look at the value chain, like a few days ago, I was talking to, if we were to make some deductions rather, a few days ago, I was talking to a local trucking company, and what I learned is that our trucking sector, the trucking business in this country, have been suffering tremendously, and this has nothing to do with COVID-19 restrictions. This was since in 2015, and that is because you have a Trinidadian company, trucking company, that is competing with them, and I think they have been benefited from fuel concessions, duty free, something to that effect, because they're here as a subcontractor, something to that effect, and that has been displacing or putting the local operators at a disadvantage,
Right.
right?
Well,
So, and this is
Joel,
why this is
go, Joel. So one of our viewers, for example, has said that one of the winners, Leonard, one of the winners under COVID depression is the telecoms and the telecoms companies.
And and I I would want to fully agree with that. I opted to this morning. I was thinking about it. You know, it gets me very upset. I should not be saying this on radio, but every time I think about sending home the workers, telling them, you know, you have to, we're gonna practice COVID-19 measures, and then we're gonna take, you're only gonna get 60%, but you have not reduced any business or anything. You're still getting monies from your internet and the telephone
Right.
services that you're offering. So I could not understand that. I have some theories, but the person is right.
Right. And Joel, I just want to apologize to you in advance. As you know, it's the recount time, so everybody's interested in the recount. But that's not the reason why I want to interrupt your train of thoughts. We have to go with the time that the GCOM people would have had. So to our viewers and listeners out there, Mr. Says Gunraj, Commissioner Says Gunraj is joining us any moment now. And Joel, I'll apologize in advance. The moment Says comes on, we will ask him to, and he's on right now, but the moment he's here, we're going to ask him to please give us an update. Commissioner, I know you're there, sir, and thank you for joining us. Please proceed right ahead, sir.
Good evening to your viewers as well. I hope you're hearing me. I'm competing with the rain and this N95 mask.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
We can
so
hear you.
we're almost wrapping up day one of the national recount at the Town Conference Center. Uh, by my count, and as I'm presently advised, we have concluded 22 boxes. 22 boxes. Yeah, I see you grabbing a pen there quickly. 22 boxes. I'm unable to give you a breakdown of to the regions right now, um, because I'm still awaiting my statement of recount. Um, that being said, it was a slow process. There were some logistics issues and security issues and so on this morning, which made us get off a late start. But that being said, the process was not as quick and efficient as I thought it would and should be. But uh, I'm hoping that we make better progress tomorrow.
Great. So, Commissioner, thank you for that information. One of our viewers has a quick question for you. Are the SOPs of any use in this process?
For the purposes of comparison, yes, but the official SOPs from the process have not been released by GCOM. So what you see is happening, and I've seen it very frequently on social media today. As soon as these same statements of recounts are generated, uh, they are compared online to statements of poll that are already in the possession of the public. And in almost all of the cases that I saw them public posted, comparatively, there has been no change revealed as a consequence of the recount process.
Leonard?
What I would want to ask the commissioner, and welcome again, Commissioner Seskin Raj, is what are some of the takeaways from today? Obviously, things didn't go as smooth as we wanted, as smoothly as we wanted. What are some of the takeaways from today, the first day of counting?
I didn't hear the question. I didn't hear the question properly, Lenore.
Let me repeat that. What are some of the takeaways from today, the first day of counting? Are you happy? What are some of the positives? What are some of the negatives?
I still am not hearing you well.
What?
If am I hearing you to say that what are some of the issues that we had today?
Yes, what he's saying what are some of the learning, what are some of the takeaways from today that would make tomorrow better?
Well, first of all, we have to start earlier tomorrow morning in terms of the logistics and security and sweeping of the building by the police, etc. Um, Outside of that, I believe that persons who are missing today, there was a lot of teaching issues, uh, some issues that were eventually resolved. I hope what we try to do today is to identify all of those issues and have them documented so that when they arise tomorrow or in the future, there isn't the need to uh, relitigate them, if I can so describe it. But what instead we will do is to just have them refer to our previous decisions on them.
And so you would say, other than the slow counting, you would say that you're satisfied with what would have transpired today.
I'm not 100% satisfied because, like I said, I believe it could have been much more efficient and timely. But but for that and some of the other smaller issues, I was asked earlier on what rate I give it, and I would say a 5 out of 10. I'm hoping that that rating improves to a 10 out of 10 by the time we are done in a timely manner.
So 22 boxes. What was a projection for today that they had wanted to finish for today?
Major issue that I have a difficulty with is that even though a decision was taken to tabulate all of the boxes that were counted today, or at the time of submission, there were uh, 13 statements of recount ready, but only five made their way to the tabulation center, which was, I believe, less than efficient and less than acceptable. But like I said, we're hoping that all of these issues get changed tomorrow and we can make some steady progress.
Right. So, Commissioner, as you know, and I'm sure you would look at some of it with a little bit of chagrin. But as you know, there have been lots of rumors and lots of things starting up, and but we cannot hide from the fact that some of the persons have come out to say that dead persons voted. What's your comment to that?
As far as I'm aware, those are issues that I've seen reference made to in social media, but none of those issues have been officially brought to the attention of the Commission. You will always find people out there trying to grandstand uh, and people who are trying to denigrate the process. If you have fundamental issues with the process, go right ahead. But each of the 23 39 polling stations throughout this country had at least an agent from the People's Progressive Party and from the Partnership for National Unity. And
Right.
if either of those persons allow the person who was not entitled to vote, then the onus is on them, right? But like I said, I don't even want to dilate on that issue because it's not something that has been officially brought to the attention of the Commission for its deliberation.
Right. Commissioner, just quickly then, I know you must be very, very tired and you have a long day ahead tomorrow. So just quickly, a little bit about the Region 1 snafu with regards to those books that's left with the RO.
I don't see it as a problem. it should not be a problem. It highlights the inefficiency of the training, perhaps, that GCOM officials had. But this is not restricted to Region One. I understand that in several instances the poll books are not available, but that's not an issue. What is necessary here is a recount of the ballots cast in election. That is the primary function here, right? So the poll books, etc., are only of superficial value, right? And they do not, their absence or presence does not affect the count.
Right. Well said. And I think I support Leonard, you were saying.
Yes, I just have one quick question for the commissioner there. I want to ask you, based on the statement of polls that you guys have in your hands, and what you would have seen, would have the results of today. Are there any big differences?
No, but that is what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying, Leonard. Earlier on, I have not been able. I've been here all day. I have my statements of the country in my hand. But what I've had so far, I've seen on social media that lots of comparison was made between the results from March 2nd and the results of the recount. And there is no material difference in those that I've seen published.
Right. Yes, indeed. I must repeat and echo what Commissioner is saying there to our viewers and listeners, because it is true. What we have seen is that there are no material differences between the SOPs that would have been declared by some of the political parties and the SORs, the count that has taken place today. Commissioner, in closing, any final words from you, sir? Because I know you need to go have some bite to eat and have a warm bath, hopefully.
Not in this time. Thank you for having me. And like I undertook in the past, and I will repeat that undertaking, I will make myself available to give you an update as is convenient.
Thank you, sir. And have a great night.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
that.
you too. And to your viewers, good night as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And viewers and listeners, that was Commissioner Seth Ganraj, and he is still at the Artichoke Convention Center, and he's bringing us at the close of play today. You know, Leonard, this is a 25-day test match, so it's the close of play today. He is bringing us the action. It's 22. That's official with him at this stage. I've seen that one of our viewers has said that the PR said it was 25, but he gave us a number of 22. Leonard?
I could not have put it better. 25 days match. I think we're going to go to the end of the month. The question that is on the table is who's batting? Which side?
That's right. That's right. And I want to remind everyone out there, as you know, a couple of our viewers from our daytime show, Leonard, they pointed out to some of the issues with social media. And I want to remind everyone out there that, you know, let us allow the system to go for a couple of days. Let us see what's happening. Let us stop with the conspiracy theories. At the end of it, that's why we have the recount, to put things into perspective. So once again, let me say thanks to Commissioner Seth Ganraj for bringing us that update. And Leonard, I know that you and I will be here tomorrow night at 8 o'clock to get another update from Mr. Ganraj, hoping he can make it, of course. What's your thoughts on that tomorrow? What do you think will happen? Leonard, you have been on record saying you're making a call now. So if there is 22 now, what's your call for tomorrow night?
I believe they could probably reach about 40, 50. I think they could double whatever they have today. And that is being ambitious to the sense that I think we started 2 hours later today. And so presuming that they get a hang of it, I think they could double that tomorrow. So practically, maybe they could go 30, 35. But if things go good and they're counting well, I see no reason why we can't get about 40 or so. But having said that, I want to make something very, very clear. The statements of the commissioner when it comes to that there's no big discrepancy at the moment. It's a little early in the game. There are no conclusions yet. One would hope that everything goes very smoothly, but it's too early in the game to make any conclusions as yet. We could only put out, I think it's 22 boxes, he says, to his figures that have been counted. so far for the day. Definitely not good enough. I think GCOM Secretariat would have made it very clear that on the first day, they would have, that 25 days was a long shot kind of thing that on the outside, on the extreme, that it could probably be finished before that. But at the rate, if you started so low in the first day, we did wanted to use as a benchmark. I think this is not a good start. However, I believe that we could probably start off the blocks very early tomorrow morning and get everything right. What you see happening so far is that the officials are indicating that they seem satisfied with what is happening so far.
Hmm.
And I
Well,
think
let me see if our economists will agree with you with regards to the projections. Joel, what do you think of that number? Leonard is saying tomorrow it might be 40. What's your thought?
Well, as remember, the persons who are conducting the recon, they have never done a recon before, right? So
Hmm.
the logistics involved, the procedures involved, they have to, the persons working on it, they have to get into the the momentum. You know, when you're learning a new task, you start out slow and eventually build speed. So I think over time, as we progress over the days and they get into the momentum, the speed could increase, and I think they could ramp up some capacity, some resources in some areas and so on, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
And we're looking
I
at
think it's
over
achievable. The time
2,500
frame set
boxes,
out
right?
is achievable.
Great. So
Yeah,
Leonard, Joel feels that the 25 days, I mean, we could achieve it because we are looking at over 25, just over 2,500 boxes. But remember, some of those boxes, like today we learned, some of those boxes have small numbers. Some of them got the 300
correct.
numbers. You know, so it's a give or take here and there. The averaging out should work quite well.
well, we were told. Remember, we were told in the inception, and in a few moments, we're going to get the presidential candidate of the Change Initiative, Rhonda Lamb, on the phone in a very short
Citizens,
while.
it's Citizens
Sorry.
Initiative, Mr. Gildarie.
My apologies. I'm a little tired. I have an excuse for that. What's your excuse, sir? But to come back to that, but let me tell you this. I do believe that we could finish before that because we were told by officials that many of the boxes are below 100. So I agree with Joel here. But we have Rhonda. Rhonda, you on the line?
I'm here. Good
Thank you.
night.
Thank you very much. I think you're a very faithful disciple, and you, like Commissioner says, the Gunraj has always been there for us. Thank you very much. Over to you, Yog.
Yes, so Rhonda, tell us in your own words how you feel about the end of the day and what's your report for the nation. Everybody's looking and listening.
Despite the late start and the fact that there were a couple of hiccups that, I identified earlier, I felt that the process went a lot smoother once a rhythm was decided. So I think as the hiccups come and they're sorted, they don't get repeated for a second box or a third box, and the process goes a little faster. However, the only thing I would say that would be negative for the day, of course, is that would have, those hiccups would have, of course, impacted the time. So if we continue at this rate, we are going to extend that 25 days. But all in all, I can say for the second session where I was able to supervise a second box in Region 3, that went a lot smoother. There were not as many objections, and thankfully the numbers that the original count had were validated by the recount. So all in all, that went smoothly. Region 4, I know as well that I believe 3 boxes were, not 3, but 3 sets of boxes were completed, so that would have been 6. And then at the end of today, we would have had tabulation only, however, for the Region 1 boxes, and that was 7 boxes. At the time when we finished, we closed off tabulation. There were no more, the tabulation center had not received the SORs for Regions 2, 3, and 4. So that's going to be the first thing we're going to start with in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Leonard?
Yes, and so do you believe, this is one of the questions that we ask, do you believe, how much you believe we could be able, I think the figures that was given to us today, 22 boxes by Says Gunraj, Commissioner Says Gunraj, How much are you projecting tomorrow?
I say easily if we start on time and a rhythm is maintained, I could possibly see us moving close to about double that. But of course, the time we have to start at 8 o'clock. We have to be able to move at a certain pace in order to, of course, what will slow down a box is the number of electors. So where you have 400 plus votes, 300 plus votes. And then because it's a mini audit as well and not just a recount, you have to check everything and ensure that all the PE envelopes are there and they contain what they say they're going to contain. We're even going through the seal numbers, which were taken off the ballot boxes when on E-Day, and then the new ballot seals that went on at the end of E-Day, and then now, of course, the seals that will be going on to close at the close of the recount, and those will be new seals again. So it's very minute, and of course, that is going to add some time to it.
This morning, there were lots of emotions running high. Did you see better, mature heads playing out this afternoon?
I did, one of the things that, as I explained, that happened earlier today, there were a number of things that were gazetted that were supposed to be given to the party leaders and the party agents. And when that was not, coming forth, and there seemed to be an odds between what the GCOM staff had been instructed and what was in the gazetted orders, that created some issue, at least for the counting station I was at. I heard loud tones coming from the others, but I can only, one of the things that I don't do is speculate. I can just tell you what I heard, and that had to do with one of the coalition reps. She was saying, somebody placed her on social media. I haven't seen that, so I can't tell you, so she was very vocal about that. I know for a fact a couple of agents asked if they could see the marked list of electors, and those kinds of things. But coming down to the end, those issues were sorted, and I did not hear outbursts. I didn't hear anything. So the second round seemed to have gone a lot smoother than the first one, because the expectations, I think, were managed between what was gazetted and what was given subsequently to party agents.
So let me see if I get you very clear. Region 1 is completed in terms of the recounting?
Well, it's not completed. 7 boxes were recounted today. And at the close of tabulation, all 7 of those have been tabulated into the spreadsheet that GCOM will use as for the declaration. There were boxes from 2, 3, and 4 as well, which had been completed, and SORs were generated for them. However, those have not gotten up to the GCOM tabulation center. So even though party agents have them, they're not with the GCOM tabulation center. So they could not continue that process. But that will be the first thing we'll do tomorrow morning.
Well, I do thank you for that. And are you ready for the next couple of weeks? It's going to be a long haul.
Well, as I am our team supervisor as well as our tabulation agent, so I am hopping as best as I can from station to station to make sure, everything is going, and then, of course, keeping an eye on the tabulation center. So it's going to call for some discipline and some hard work over the next couple of weeks.
There you have it, the presidential candidate of the Citizen Initiative, Rhonda Lamb. Ma'am, anything else you want to say to the people of Guyana before we say goodbye?
Yes, I would urge the people of Guyana to not be, and I said this earlier, I'm seeing some posts on Facebook that are not necessarily healthy for the emotions of our people. And I would advise our population to read a post, assess their emotions, and then afterwards react to it. What you don't want is various party agents riling the population up in that sense, speculations and all of those kinds of things. So for me, since, the party agents don't seem to be understanding that, I would advise the population, let cool heads prevail. GCOM, I cannot stress this enough. GCOM seems to be managing the process so far very well, minus the long, the delays we had today and all of that. So let the process work. If and when we need to raise an alarm, I think that's when we should, and even as party leaders and everyone else, we should be responsible enough to understand that the words that are coming out of our mouth have an impact on the rest of the population.
I thank you for that. That is Rhonda Lamb, the presidential candidate of the Citizen Initiative. Yog, I got it right there. Rhonda, good evening.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, Yog, I think that was very responsible coming from a party leader, Rhonda Lamb, calling for level heads, and they're saying be responsible in this very trying times. What she's also saying that she is also saying what has been echoed by others that GCOM seems to be in charge and in control of what is happening here today. Is that is the conclusion that we have so far from the various people?
Correct. And just to put things in perspective, there, our listeners and viewers, we need to remember that Region 1 is pretty small. I mean, there were probably about 12,000 votes in all for, over the entire region. So it's pretty small, and it's hoping that that would go by, as she rightly said, go by very quickly. And as that go by, don't forget that the way it is set up is that the tables, there's still Region 5 and Region 10 that has not started or will not be started until a workstation becomes available. So that's how they have set it up. You can, viewers and listeners, feel free to go onto the GCOM website and you can download the order there and check it out. Joel, what are your thoughts with what we would have heard for the past couple of minutes from Sis and Rhonda?
I think it was based on the reports coming from them, despite the few hiccups we've had. Overall, it was a good process. Overall, it's a good process. So I think what we need to ensure is that this level of consistency improve and continue as we work towards completing this period, because it is affecting the economy, it's affecting business, it's affecting people's lives.
Correct.
Right? There is both macro and micro implications on the economy.
Correct. And I want to pick you up just there because, Joel, I know I'm asking you an impossible question, but, I guess you have gotten used to working on permutations from impossibilities, given the Guyana situation, right? But look, if it were not for GCOM 2020, even though there was COVID, would you hazard a guess to say we might have been in a fairly healthier position than we are economic-wise?
If it was not GCOM, for GCOM 2020?
That's so right. The disease that is called GCOM 2020.
And you ask me if we would have been in a better position?
Yes, whether our economy, in other words, with a legitimate government in place from March 5th or 6th thereabouts, would we not have been probably managing things a little better?
All right, I love that question, Yog. How much more time do we have?
You go ahead. We will tell you when we can quit.
If you know me, I've been in previous shows with you. When I ask you that question, it's a good lecture coming, right?
Yes. Go ahead.
I wanna back up a little bit to qualify my answer that was incomplete when we were interrupted on the Leonard asked me. I don't want to leave that answer hanging. See, Leonard asked a question which is, I said it's a very political question, but I want to give that question context. And the context is to determine what is happening, who's benefiting more from the oil sector. It would be incorrect to say that it's only Trinidadians or foreign companies and Guyanese are not benefiting. The truth is, Guyanese companies and Guyanese have been benefiting from that. We also got to understand and appreciate the fact that we don't have, while local content and the need for local content has tremendous merit, and the work that the private sector bodies have been advocating for has tremendous merit. We also got to consider the fact that a lot of the things that are required, while we can do some, like, for example, logistics and trucking, we got to build our own capacity This sector is a highly capital intensive sector. It's highly standardized in terms of the standard and the quality of work. So we got to build our capacity. We also don't have a lot of the infrastructure in place. So we're at a lot of disadvantage, and we can't look at it from the perspective that foreign companies coming at it. There are opportunities for us to benefit. We have been benefiting. There's opportunities for us to build our capacity and improve in that regard by way of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and all these sort of things, right? So I just wanted to qualify that question and put it into context a little bit. Then you got to look at the quality of our labor force. I've talked many times about the quality of our labor force. Less than 5% of our labor force are qualified at the level of postgrad and so forth, and that has an impact. That has an impact on the quality of the economy as well. Because if you take the government out of the equation, if you take our politics out of the equation, if we had a highly skilled labor force, then government could come up with whatever policy. With innovation and creativity and these sort of things, we would have been way ahead of where we are. So I just wanted to put that into a little bit of context. Now, coming back to your question, just remind me, let me see, I don't miss the question. If we didn't have the GCOM uh, fiasco,
If,
what
if,
has
the, if
happened
yes, if
from the
there was a
2020
legitimate
election?
government in place, yeah, if there was a
Mhm.
legitimate government in place soon after elections, would our economy be faring better today?
Oh, certainly. You see, with what's happening with COVID, with what was happening with COVID, and to deal with it, we don't have any money. The truth of the matter is we don't have any money. And I wrote a letter to the editor, which Kaichor News carried. The Minister of Finance was on record on an interview stating that the resource of the country is slender, and that if we were able to take a percentage or half of the money that we have in the Fed from oil, which was work out to $6 billion, we would have been better off to deal with the response measures that we need to deal with to cushion the effects. That is to give support to the small companies who would be suffering the most, who don't have a big bank account and not doing well, like the big corporations, and of course the people who are the persons who are unemployed. Now, and I responded to him in my letter, which I'll tell you to answer the question partially. In 2015, the government inherited a very, very sound macroeconomic framework. They had over $15 billion surplus money in the bank. Over $15 billion surplus money.
Is that
The
is that 15?
international
Is that 1 5 or is it 50?
one
The
five,
surplus.
15 billion,
Okay,
15 billion
15 billion.
surplus. Yeah, and so that's surplus money. We had our international reserve was in excess of over 5 months import cover. Today, what do we have today? We have over $80 billion deficit. If we take the last balance that was reported on the consolidated fund in 2015, it was about 70 billion. In 2017, it's 137 billion. That figure has not been that balance has not been reported on since 2017. So I would assume it's probably close to 200 billion. The central bank accounts, the government deposit accounts at the Bank of Ghana has always recorded surplus balances, always, never been in negative until 2015. It went into deficit. So if we aggregate those deficit balances to what we have to our stock of national debt and the overdraft balance on the consolidated fund, which those deficit balances are not supposed to be perpetual debt financing to the government. They're supposed to be cleared off. They're supposed to be put back into surpluses or clear them off, nil them off, right? That has not been happening. So we have over $100 billion. So there's no money. There's no surplus money. So that is why you need now a legitimate government in those circumstances, in those economic realities. We need to borrow. We need to
Right,
borrow. We need to perhaps negotiate to rewrite restructure some of our national debt to give us some fiscal space to deal with this. And of
right,
course, we've seen what the diplomats have said. We've seen what the international community have said. We have applied to international institutions for financial assistance. We don't know what's the status of those applications, and so of course it requires a legitimate government to properly conduct the business of the country and to respond in a prudent and proper manner and an appropriate manner to support the the measures needed and the kind of cushioning that the economy needs so that we don't spiral into a deep crisis and people um, go hungry.
Right. So Leonard, you have those numbers, my friend. Those are some staggering shifts in our economy, staggering shifts on the deficit, well, the surplus to the deficit. And it just shows how a country needs to have stability, doesn't it, Leonard?
Yeah, well, I was about to ask him one question because I can't remember if it was Winston Jordan or one of the other ministers would have said it. Entering into 2015, they lost that Petro-Carib deal. I want to ask Joel whether he's paid attention. I think earlier in the show he indicated or he pointed out the effect of the closure of the sugar estates and what that would have meant to the economy. But I want to ask him if he has analyzed the impact of the Petro-Carib deal and the loss of that and what that might have meant with us having to pay upfront now for the oil.
Well, that impact there was no real impact on that last deal because since 2015, our rice sector has, despite some of the challenges which had to do with other variables, other factors, it has not been affected negatively like the sugar industry. So our export earnings from rice remain relatively unchanged. It has not been adversely affected. So the answer to the question is no. There has been no severe impact as a result of that deal, based on the numbers when you look at the export figures.
But a little clarification there. My understanding of that deal is that instead of you paying the money up front for oil, because it's an oil for rice deal, you would pay a percentage and then you keep the other and you keep it over a period of years. And so that remains with the economy. And maybe that's where you see the balances. But I want to ask you that. I'm no economist. I'm just putting that to you.
So you're asking what is the effect of that,
No, no.
I
of
think,
not having that arrangement?
yeah, I think, Leonard, if I may.
Yes.
So, Leonard, I think your question is premised on the fact that the view is that because you lost the Petro-Carib deal, you now had to find money to pay for the fuel.
Upfront. Yes,
right?
Right.
But here is one of the layman's answer to that. So what happened to the rice? We still had the rice and we still sold the rice for money.
Correct.
You see the point there, Leonard?
You see, that arrangement was more a bartering arrangement.
Yes.
So it was a bartering arrangement, and there are certain reasons for that arrangement. So Yog is correct. Dr. Yog is correct in his response. Yeah.
So-
When you
so-
sell the rice, you collect the money, so you use the money to pay for it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Joel, let's come down to something else, because you have given to the Guyanese public there. I mean, not everybody reads. We don't all enjoy reading, as you know, so we like to listen to. You have said to the public there that there is a staggering shift from an $18 billion surplus to an $80 billion deficit. And you have even said that,
Correct.
given what's happening, you're looking at a huge number. I just received this in my inbox and I want to put it to you. I hope I can articulate it well. In 2015, the current government said that the economy was bleeding because of the drugs and all of that. And in 2015, 2014, the current government said that they could save hundreds of millions by running a meaner and leaner government. Here is the question, Joel. The current government used the same budget numbers as their predecessors with a ramped up percentage every year. In other words, they were spending at a higher volume than their predecessor to achieve a lesser output. Can you explain that to the layman, sir?
In layman term, government spending is divided into largely two categories. Government spend on investment capital project, which is investment in building bridges, building road, building infrastructure, building new housing schemes, and those type of projects, like for example, to build a new housing scheme, a new development, or to develop a plot of land, that creates employment. It creates opportunities for the construction sector, the companies that supply the materials and the labor force and the electricity and all of that. That is productivity. That yields a productive outcome
Right.
in that regard. So what has happened? You are correct. There has been significant increase in government spending from 2015, from a 220 billion budget to 300 billion budget. In fact, I look at the numbers. I look at government spending for 23 years, and the previous administration spent $2 trillion in 23 years, and the current administration spent over $1 trillion in 5 years. And if we take, and that's up to 2019 budget. We don't have the numbers to ascertain how much was spent during this period. But if we were to make some deductions based on the $1 billion project, we could safely say that we're close to racking up $2 trillion in 5 years, right? So that is
That is staggering.
exponential,
That is
right?
staggering.
Correct. Now, the question is, where is the spending allocated? And the spending has been allocated less spending in productive activities, in investments, in things that would create new industries, things that would create new businesses and new opportunities, in the consumption. Consumption are things that you spend to pay salaries, to pay for food, to pay bills, and all these administrative things. And then if you read the Auditor General report, you would see a lot of worrying things in there. They can't find bills to account for 600 million and these sort of things, right? And you go through the audit report, you see all those sort of things. So that is what has been happening, and that is why these other sectors have been largely neglected. And then in terms of the householders, this is why I was looking at the level of non-performing loans in the banking sector as well, to validate that argument. When we look at our non-performing loans from 2015, the total non-performing has increased from 25 billion to 30 billion, or 16%. And how the Bank of Guyana report it into different sectors: there is the business, enterprise, agriculture, mining, manufacturing, services, and households. And guess what? The household sector and the services sector level of non-performing loans increased by 75% and 30% respectively. So that tells you what that figure tells you is that householders, the ordinary people, have not been able, they're not earning enough, or they've lost income, or have small business, they're losing revenue because of this economy in some sectors, and they're not able to service their loans. That is
Right.
over $5 billion increase that people are not able to service this. So that tells a worrying picture in terms of common man and the householders and the working class, right?
So
Not
Leonard,
because of lack of
just
creating.
just to put in perspective, Leonard, because I mean you are the senior journalist here and you do all these articles. I mean, to approximately, at least it's more than 1 trillion as we speak. This is at the end of last year, that the government has spent within 5 years. And one has to look at the development ratio, what's happening across the country and how advanced we are for investing $1 trillion in the economy, Leonard. I repeat that. One has to evaluate how advanced Guyana has become after investing $1 trillion through the national budget. Now, I want us to take a little commercial break, but Joel, here is another question. I'm sorry to be throwing them at you, but people ask these questions. If a government is in deficit, Joel, how can it find and how can it argue to take $1 billion to go spend on a building that is for convalescent? And Leonard, I don't know if you know this. Just before we go off on this break, I don't know if you know this, Leonard. You know what's Ocean View Center, what it's called, a national sanatorium. And you know what's a sanatorium for?
I thought that was to get some kind of massage and things like that.
I know I'll get you. The sanatorium is where the people who are recovering go to recover, right? It's like a help helping to help you recover, but it certainly is not the ICU. It is certainly not a quarantine. It is certainly not the place where you'd keep it's where people are going to go when they're recovering, right? So whether you would spend $1 billion where people can go to recover is a question we'll have probably for another show. So Joel, we want to take a minute break, and when we come back, I would like if you could address, educate our listeners and viewers about if a government is in deficit, how does it then get money, and how does it argue towards the release of money? I know we are going a little bit in the finance side, but you're here so we can beat you up with it. Let's take our little commercial break.
Unleash the truth in room 592 with Dr. Yog Mahadeo and his co-host Leonard Gildarie, keeping the most important matters on the front line: elections, economics, politics, and much more. Room 592 on Kaitra Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Room 592 every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 p.m.
Enjoy Free Nights Talk with Digicel, the curfew edition. Get unlimited free talk to any Digicel number between 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. All you have to do is top up $1,000 or more every day before 6 p.m. to enjoy unlimited free talk. That's a whole lot of gaff. No more boring nights. You can now call your mommy, daddy, your bestie, your boo, even granny to tell them all that Digicel unlimited free night talk is back. Terms and conditions apply. Digicel, there with you.
Hours 41, and you tune into the radio with a difference, and it is time for Room 592 this evening with Dr. Yog Mahadeo and Leonard Gildarie. They are well into the program, going full force with their guests this evening being GCOM Commissioner Sezgan Raj and economist Joel Bhagwandin. Gentlemen, good evening to you once again.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And, let's go straight to Joel. I know we're running out of our program time, but Joel, over to you with that question, my friend.
So the question is, repeat the question for the sake of the viewers.
Yeah, the question is that if a government is in deficit, how does it argue for the release of funds? And where does government find, under such circumstances, these funds to spend? Does it borrow?
Well, yes. If a government doesn't have surplus money, it has to borrow. Mm-hmm. And it borrows from two sources. It could borrow from external sources, that is, external agencies like the World Bank, IDB, CDB, or other governments, China, India, whoever. And it borrow locally from the domestic financial market. And where does it get it? In terms of the $1 billion, well, we don't know if it get it from borrowing externally. That certainly has not been reported. So where does it come from? It comes from the central bank. The central bank, as you know, comes, while it's an autonomous institution, it also comes under the purview of the Ministry of Finance. So how do I put? I don't want to put the answer raw to the viewers, but in other words, a government borrow money from the central bank. The central bank is more or less obligated to honor those payments, and if they don't have, and that has to do directly with the overdraft accounts,
Mm-hmm.
simply printing money. And when you print money to finance the government, that is, you're effectively creating debt. And when you create debt, you have to pay the debt. And at the rate, the state we are, if we are to correct those accounting and to fix those accounts, we are creating, it's a recipe for bankruptcy. It's a recipe for bankruptcy.
Right. Joel, given COVID-19 and the economic impact that will be felt by every country in the world, and given where Guyana stands, in 25 days, Joel, remember our election, the legitimacy of a Guyana government will still have to wait another 25 minimum days. What, my friend, is the projection then in 25 days? What's the state of Guyana, and will we ever be able to come out from this?
Well, you see, when we had the 2008 global financial crisis, Guyana was not affected. And the reason why we were not affected is because we were not exposed to that crisis. Our institutions had minimal investment in those markets, so we were not affected. And I was reflecting on that same question for other academic purposes. And while I haven't done deep, sophisticated work in that regard, from my own understanding of our economy, COVID-19 restrictions, while it imposes naturally economic hardships in certain sectors and so on, it's also a blessing in disguise. It's a blessing in disguise because if we didn't have COVID, and if we are to extrapolate a trend, let's say the status of the government, I mean, legal experts argue that we should have had elections since a year ago because of the no confidence movement.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the government continued to operate as per normal for 1 year. So if we put that variable into the equation and we didn't have COVID-19, with the current state, the government would still be operating normal. That means they would continue to spend, all right? They would continue to spend. And when you look at our trade balance, our trade deficit is the highest in the last 10 years. Our import figure, which has been at $2 billion, has reached $3 billion US. And that is because of oil and gas related activities, heavy import of capital goods for that particular sector. That has been largely the reason why our reserve cover has reduced significantly from 5 months and 3 months import cover, bearing in mind that 3 months import cover is the minimum benchmark universally, right? We're now below two months import cover. So if we take COVID out of the equation, the economy would have operated. Also, the oil price, the issue because of the pandemic and low oil prices, that is a blessing as well. Because if that didn't happen, if we didn't have low oil price, we didn't have the pandemic, but we still had the state of the government and GCOM elections, we would have been, in the next 2 months, we would have been hit in bankruptcy because we would have run out of money to pay for imports. We would have run out of money to pay for imports, and that would have had inflationary effects. We would have a currency crisis. Then a currency crisis leads to an economic crisis, and then at the rate of government spending, racking up all these high levels of debt, we would be on the verge of bankruptcy. So because of COVID-19 and the restrictions on international trade and because of low oil prices, it's actually a blessing in disguise during this period so that we are not racking up debt. The government can't spend because there is restriction. Our import is down in terms of consumption. Activities in the oil sector because of low oil prices is down. So it's actually a blessing, truthfully speaking, in my opinion, from all the work I've done over the years, looking at our numbers, dissecting our economy. It's a blessing in disguise.
Well,
the direct answer to your question.
Yes, go on.
The direct answer to your question is over the next 2 months, because of the COVID restriction, I do not anticipate anything severe happening. and let's hope that we get a legitimate government quickly in place, and we start on the recovery trajectory to fix these fiscal distortions of our economy and go back to the path of growth and prosperity. So
Correct. Well
in a
said.
kind of a way, we need to be thankful for COVID-19.
And that is a very interesting perspective, because not many persons would have thought that, had we continue importing at the rate we were importing, having the trade deficit the way it was, what would have been the state of the economy? Leonard, I see you want to say something, and you want to say it very, very, very badly.
When he said that we've gone from $2 billion to $3 billion in imports, and I somebody was telling me recently that the price of ginger gone up. I never see so much of people eating ginger or drinking ginger as we've seen now, and so there has been a big demand for ground provisions and things like that. And I hope I can't help but smile when I think maybe this is a lesson he's spoken about. It may be a blessing in disguise. I think our people need to wake up and smell the coffee right now and start thinking of how many good things that we have here that we could probably use and probably save some of those foreign currency that we spend in to bring in stuff that we probably could get right here.
Correct. Well, Joel, quickly, I want to mention this to you to elicit your comments, of course, but it is felt, I myself have posted something not too long ago, it is felt that, given Guyana's potential, just our raw potential, we probably has the best opportunity than many other countries to recover quickly. Your comments, sir.
I certainly agree, and I certainly agree with you, and that's the path. That's the path I was going down. When I say that COVID-19, it's a blessing in disguise, and I state the reason. Yes, we do have the potential because our economy is not a very sophisticated economy, and a lot of it would have to do, of course, with international trade, and it depends on the macro scale. Other economies opening up their borders and so forth, so that we could sell goods, we could export our goods. Our recovery, I don't think it would be very painful. I don't think it would be very painful.
Mm-hmm. But there has to be a will of government. There has to be a will,
Certainly.
and Guyana needs. Yeah, go on.
It will certainly be a long haul, and that depends on the type of policies we bring, and that depends on other factors on the global economy and the regional economy as well, geopolitical dispensation as well. But there is a need for food, and this is a time for the Caribbean as a region to unite more, right? We talk a lot about Guyana as the food basket. When a world is in crisis, you need food. People need food, so we need to produce food. So this is an opportunity for the agriculture sector, food security. The CARICOM imports $10 billion in food every year, $10 billion US. So if we have the right mechanisms in place, the right leadership and the right policy mechanisms, the right policy instruments, and better cooperation with our regional counterparts, right? Our recovery, I don't anticipate it to be a very painful one. It may be a long one, but not very painful. Low oil prices, a lot of people talking about low oil prices is bad, but we import over $500 million in fuel every year. Now we're supposed to be reaping the benefits of low oil price on the other side.
Right.
All right, on the other side, because our energy sector is driven by fossil fuel. So if we have cheap energy, then our production, if there is opportunity for production of food, then this is an opportunity, even in a crisis, to ramp up production for food to supply our own needs and to supply regionally. So there are opportunities. In any crisis, there is always opportunities. You got to be able to identify it and strategize. Don't just talk about the negative impacts, and there are positives in it and opportunities to be exploited.
Great. Well, thank you so very much for that, Joel. It's been an interesting conversation, and I know there's so much more we can discuss. In fact, Leonard, I want to just share with our viewers and listeners here, and Joel, I want to invite you to come back. Next week, Wednesday, I'm hoping to have Taran Kamraj to discuss, more macroeconomic issues, recovery of Caribbean and the rest of the world vis-a-vis Guyana's position. And I want to invite you to come back, providing you have the time, my friend, because the
Certainly.
microeconomic position certainly is a very important aspect of that entire discussion. So I would like to invite you to come back. Joel, your final thoughts as we start to wrap up tonight's discussion. It's been very interesting and you've been on point with everything.
My final thoughts is continue to stay safe. For those of you who are at home, use your time wisely, productively, learn a new skill, read. I see guys like Roshan Khan Jr. doing a fantastic job on social media. Um, I've been doing what I can in terms of offering free tutoring for students who are preparing for their exams during this period, ABE exams and so on. So continue to stay safe. Don't panic too much about the pandemic. I mean, I've talked about how it's a blessing in disguise, and we need to reflect on that. And let's support our political leaders and all the other stakeholders at the Artichon Convention Center, and trust and pray that that goes smoothly, so that we could come out of that, so that we could respond and deal with the other issues nationally, and so that we could move on as a country.
Great. Well, thank you so very much, Joel. And indeed, you are correct. Brothers and sisters, viewers, listeners, we have to stay safe and use your time wisely. Leonard, you and I have been talking about this every day. Joel, Leonard and I have been calling on everyone that, you are at home, plant some peppers. You literally, if you have a little 1 foot space, you can plant a pepper plant or a tomato plant or something, and use your time wisely and learn a new skill. You are so right, Joel. Leonard, I just want to share this with our viewers and listeners. Tomorrow, we're hoping to have a very, very short, room 592. As you know, we are supposed to be Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But tomorrow, we are hoping to have a very short session just to receive some updates from GCOM's front, from the Artichon Convention Center. So join us at 8 p.m. tomorrow. 8 p.m. is fine, Leonard?
Yes, that's fine with me. That's fine with me. Okay.
Good. Join us at 8 p.m. tomorrow just for a recount update. And also, don't forget, viewers and listeners, that senior journalist Leonard Gildarie and yours truly, we are on tomorrow at 2 o'clock to discuss more of COVID and Elections Watch, led, of course, by this distinguished gentleman on screen here, Mr. Leonard Gildarie. And also, we are taking calls from all across the country. We're hearing what you have to say, and we do that from approximately 2:45 to 3 p.m. tomorrow, but our show starts at 2 p.m. Let me also say that, Leonard, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but Alex Arjun, he created a wonderful video about the coastlands of Guyana and the threats we are under. And on our Friday night, room 592, we have a discussion with Alex Arjun and that lovely documentary that he created with regards to how we can safeguard the environment. The point here is that whilst elections are still ongoing, the rest of Guyana has to continue going too. And so we are certainly looking at keeping our fingers on the pulse in all aspects of our economy and all aspects of our country. So, Leonard, closing words from you.
Well, a couple of things here. Alex Arjun, I know that young man. That's Annette's son, Annette Arjun's son. And so if he's anything like his mom, and I think he is more, and there's all due respect to Annette, of course, that gentleman has done some tremendous work with photography of the hinterlands of Guyana. And I've seen some clips of that video, and it's tremendous, tremendous work. With regards to Joel, I fully agree with you. There's some opportunities. I do believe that based on his arguments here, that there's some, maybe it's a blessing in disguise, COVID-19 on what would have been troubles with the economy. And I can tell you too, here's a wonderful opportunity. If oil has presented us with an opportunity, I think COVID-19, and this at the risk of sounding selfish, COVID-19 has presented us with some opportunities to spread our wings across the Caribbean. I lived in St. Martin 6 years, very quickly, and St. Martin imports everything. They do not produce anything. So when you look at the food and every single thing you're talking about, plantains, fish, everything goes into St. Martin, and that's part of the Caribbean, and they're based on tourism. So when you look at Barbados and a couple of other places, even nearby Trinidad, we have tremendous opportunities here. And I think Joel is right on button with that.
Correct, correct. Well, thank you so much for that, Mr. Gildarie. And Leonard, Joel, thank you so very much for coming here. Sir, I know that you have been an excellent lecturer. And, I know you're also giving free tutoring to the education to students. What would you say in closing to your students who would have missed you in the classroom, sir?
Well, I actually told them to join this program because I was supposed to be teaching tonight, and I said I'll be teaching the same things I'll be teaching you on the show. So they didn't really miss any classes.
Okay.
So it's continue. I just wanted to say to them, continue to work hard and read, and you put in the work, the reward will be deserving.
Great, great.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So to viewers and listeners out there, continue joining us every night at 8 p.m. We are going to have an elections recount update from Mr. Gunraj and other persons at the GCOM Center, Arthur Chung Convention Center. On Friday, I'm going to have Alex Arjun to discuss the coastlands. And on Monday, should we let the information now go, Leonard?
No, if you so desire, but I think a secret is a secret.
Let's keep it a secret until weekend. But on Monday, we're going to have a big discussion, a big powwow with somebody who really made history in Guyana. Hint, hint, a year ago. So we're going to have that discussion on Monday. But certainly, Joel, thank you so much for being here. And we will pick up this discussion on the economy next Wednesday. Joel, I know that you would have had a number of other things to discuss with us. But I would want to encourage you to keep on writing as the way you do, and to encourage viewers and listeners, please pick up the Kaiser News and read Joel's articles. They're very profound and they're on point with regards to his contribution towards the development of this country. So it's great. Joel, continue the good work. Leonard, thank you for being here. Josh, Kevin, thank you all. And Mr. Glenlal, thank you and Kaiser News for making Room 592 a reality. Have a good night, viewers and listeners. Good night, one and all.
Thank you very much.
Unleash the truth in Room 592 with Dr. Yog Mahadeo and his co-host Leonard Gildarie, keeping the most important matters on the front line: elections, economics, politics, and much more. Room 592 on Kaiser Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Room 592 every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 19:30.
And here goes, I represent for 99.1 Kaicho Radio, the radio with a difference.